Hello everyone, welcome to part 5 of our video tutorial series. Today we will continue to work on our Angular application and we will create a Create Post dialog. Now let's start with the coding. Let's just recap what we already have created. So in the last part we have created a table that renders our post entries from our REST API that we have created on using using NestJs. Today we will create the Create Post dialog. First of all, let's change a little bit the look of this button. I would like to use a floating action button from the Angular Material Library, this one. And we can also use a icon for the button. Let's just start firstly with the position of this button. Let's just remove it from the toolbar. Let's go to our code. Here we have our toolbar, and let's just remove those buttons from here, and we will cut this button out, and let's go to post list, and we will add this button here. And this is not a mat icon button, but we want to use a floating action button, and this is how it looks like. Let's just take this one, or yeah, we'll take this one. We'll replace this here, remove this class, and we want to add a material design icon here. Now you can go to the list of the available icons, and here we can start searching or filtering the available icons. Let's just see if we have a create icon. Yes, we do. So we can either use this one or maybe the plus sign. Wait a second, let's just, I don't remember what's the name of it. Let's just search the icons here. Add, perhaps the name is add. And yeah, exactly. So you see here, this is the name of the icon, and you just need to provide this name into the mat icon component, like that. And let's check our application. Okay, I think we get an error, of course, because mat icon is also a material module. Let's just import the module itself into our post list module, mat icon module, and yeah, and a comma. And here we get the button itself, but it looks like the icons are not displayed properly. Let's just see what the documentation for Angular material is telling us. Let's just go to guides. Oh no, let's just see the icon documentation. Makes easier. All right, something about fonts, font icons with ligatures. Okay, let's just see. Maybe we have missed something. I'm pretty much sure we have missed some import of the font itself. Let's just see. Getting started. Okay. Support. Yeah, you see, step 6 is a optional step that we skipped. If you want to use the mat icon component with the official material design icons, load the icon font in your index.html. This is exactly what we are going to do. Just copy this snippet and let's go to our index.html and boom. We now can refresh, and here is the button. Good. We need to adjust a little bit the markup for this, because remember we can use the Bootstrap grid system, and our container fluid is the table, and the button is just rendered here without any markup. Good. Let's just fix it really quick. Go to post list, and maybe we will create a new container fluid like that. We can create a row and a column, 12 grid column. Good. Now get the button here, and let's see what yeah, all right. We also want to display this button on the right side. Let's just do it with a simple class. Oh, we don't have the utility classes. Maybe we should just add them, because they are really helpful from the Bootstrap library. Let's go and see. Oh, actually we already have the Bootstrap library. Let's just see what kind of stuff we can import. Remember, we have imported the Bootstrap grid CSS, and we can also import, let's see what it has. Yeah, well, it has, okay, it has just the grid and the minified version. All right. This is strange that we don't have those classes, because those classes are utility classes, and I thought they would be inside the grid system. All right. Good. Let's just make it with the flex box. We can add the deflex class, and we can align content at the end. Oops. End. Right? Or did we use it on our own class? No. Good. Now we can use justify content end. Perfect. Oh, and the aligned, we don't actually need the aligned content end. Good. This is how it should look like. We can also add a MT5 to add some margin on top, and that's okay. That's okay for now. So let's make the modifications here. So we will use a deflex class, a justify content end class, and we will add here a MT5 class. This is the margin top 5 class, and this is for the grid box. Sorry, for the flex box. Good. Let's see the changes. Perfect. So we have now a material design button, and maybe we should add some highlights. This is our what's the name? What's the right name? Sorry. Tooltip. We need a tooltip. Where are tooltips here? Toolbar, card, boom, pop-ups. Yeah, here, tooltip. So a tooltip is just a text that will be displayed when you hover over the container. So we can just add a tooltip to our button here. Let's just make tooltip create new post, and again you should get an error because the tooltip is, well, you don't get the error, but the tooltip is not being displayed because you also need to import the mod tooltip module. And as you can see, we already have a lot of material modules imported. What I like to do is actually to put them, all those commonly used modules, into a separate module. And let's just do this. Let's just create a new folder, call it common, and here we will create material folder, and inside that we will have a TypeScript file, and this will be a common material modules. And here we will create a new module. We don't need this, and we don't need the declarations, but we can here now move those commonly used material modules, and we can export them right away. And now let's rename the class to common material modules. Now what we can do, we can remove every material module we have used here, and don't forget to enter the mat button module here as well. Now let's check if we have some other in other modules the material modules. Doesn't look like we do. Good. So what we can do now, we can actually import a single module instead of all those material modules, and this module will just export the commonly used material modules. Just make the code a little bit cleaner than you would have lots and lots of imports for commonly used material modules. And I think we have imported it into the wrong component because we need them in the post list module, right? So let's just check if nothing breaks, and looks like everything is okay. But the browser animation module or the noob animation module is required for one of the components. Oh, for the tooltip, it's required for the tooltip. Let's just import it in our main application module. Browser animation module. Good. That should fix this error. Browser animation module declared by a module. Why? Oh, I think, yeah, I've put it into the declaration, but we should put it inside the imports, right? Oh, by the way, here you see we have the same material modules that we already have provided in the common material module. So we can remove this and we can say common material module. So import this common material module. Good. Now let's check if the error is gone. Okay, my toolbar row is an Angular component that verified that it is part of the my toolbar row. We don't actually use it. This is strange. From where? Well, let's just try and restart the server, because we have created a new file and a new module. Maybe it has some difficulties to read the new file. This sometimes happens, so just keep in mind you might want to restart it. But this is not our case. My toolbar row is not a known element. All right, let's see if we have imported it correctly. Oh, sorry, the wrong module. Common material modules. A mat tooltip module. Oh, I think we need the table module as well. Yes, we do have the table module here. And something is missing. What is actually missing? Don't need it here. Let's just try and debug this mat toolbar row. Oh yeah, we have I see what's happening. The mod toolbar raw component that we use inside our app component, this one, it is not part of the common material module. And I don't think it should be part of this module, because the toolbar will be used just once in the main app component. So let's just import only the mod toolbar module once inside the main app module. That should fix the error perfectly. So you see everything is working. If we hover over this button, we see a create new post tooltip. So that's informative, and try to build your user interfaces so that they are intuitive, and when you need some additional information, just provide it with such tools as tooltips or placeholders. Anyway, let's go, and we need actually to create a dialog for our post creation. Let's start to do this. Here in our post module, we will create a new folder called dialogs, and here we will create a TypeScript file called create post dialog component. Good, and this component will require a template. So this will be create post dialog. I skipped the prefix component for HTML files because this is just the template, it's not the actual component. Good, let's remove this auto-generated HTML, and here we will create a component. Oops. This will be the dialog, create post dialog component. The template URL is create post dialog HTML, and the selector is app. This is actually required by the TSLint rule to provide a prefix to each of your new components. So you can modify the prefix that TSLint is requiring. By default, the prefix is set to app, and we will call it create post dialog. Good. All right, we are set. Yes, we are set here, and now we need to declare this component. Go to declarations, create post dialog component. Now, one thing that you might miss, while this is a dialog, we won't access it the usual way. So we don't create a tag inside a template with the name of the selector for this component. We will actually call a specific method from a specific service from Material that will instantiate this component for us. While this is our case, we need not only declare this component inside the declarations, but this component will be declared inside the entry components property of the module. So remember, if you create dialogs, they are not only simple components in the declarations, but they are also entry components, and you need to provide them inside the property entry components, like that. And this is it. Now let's go to our list. Actually, let's just add some HTML here to just for the test. Hello, I am a dialog. And now we can start inside our post list. We can start to create a new method. Let's call it open create dialog or create post. And we will need a new service from material, Angular material, call it private mat dialog, and this is material dialog service. Now we can call the material dialog open method, and here we will provide the name of the component, of the dialog component that is registered as a entry component inside this method. Good. The only thing that is left, we just need to call this method when we hit the create button. So we will create here a click, and we will call this method here create post. And now we go to our localhost, to our application. We see an error, and guess what? Material dialog is also a module, and I think, and I prefer to have him inside the common modules, because you might use the dialog pretty often. So we will say import dialog module here, and we also export it to other modules. Now let's see if this changes. Yeah, you see the error is gone because we have imported the module itself. And what happens if we click on the create new post button? We get a dialog with the text from our template. Good. This is actually very good. What we can do now is, well, we need to create here a form to create a new post. All right. Now let's check how the model looks like. So we need to create a new dialog. I mean, in order to create a new dialog, we need to provide some data. If we go to our post API, we see that the create action requires a create post DTO. This is how it looks like. So it should have a title, a subtitle, an image URL, and a content. We can actually copy this one and paste it inside our data model folder for the post resource. Let's just create a new TypeScript file, create post, and we can call it also create post DTO. And this is actually this is a class inside the NestJs application, but we can make it an interface here because we won't use the class itself. We don't need, well, the difference between a class in TypeScript and interface is that the interface will never be compiled into JavaScript. And so if we describe just the data, we save memory when we compile the application, if we just use the interfaces. So remember, a class will be compiled in JavaScript and a interface will never be compiled into JavaScript. So this is our interface. Now let's go to our create post dialog, and here we'll create a new form. We'll create a form, and inside here I want to use the material form field for form inputs, and let's just create a new form field and see how it looks like. So you need mat form field, and each mat form field should contain a input this a mat input like that. And remember, while the mat form field and the mat input are part of the material, Angular material, as we already know, they might be inside a module. So let's see if we have a mat input module, and we do have. Let's import it in our common module, material common module, and also export it. And we also need the mat form field module, exactly like that, and export it as well. Good. And you see form input without an associated label or title attribute. This is actually IntelliJ's hint. We should provide perhaps a placeholder, and this will be our title. Now let's copy this and paste it several times, and here let's check the create post DTO. We can provide a subtitle, and we can provide a image URL, and the content. Well, the content, I would say it's not a input, it is a text area, because we can have much more text inside it, and we might want to add a library, a WYSIWYG editor library, but not yet, maybe later. Let's just check how the input for the text area works. So it supports the input and the text area. You see this attribute mat input. So let's just also add the mat input here. And we also can provide a placeholder, let's say content, and we remove from this form field the input. Now let's see how all of this is look. Oh, mat form field is not known element. Of course, it's not a known element here, because our common material module, yes, we do have it. We also provided the form field module here and form field module here. Let's just see. Template parser mat form field is not known if mat form. Well, this is strange. Let's just try and restart the application. Perhaps this is the case what I've told you earlier, that it doesn't see the new files. No, it's still the case. Okay, let's investigate this a little bit closer. So we use the mat input inside the dialog. Okay, the dialog is declared. Oh, I see what's the issue is. You see, the create post dialog is declared not in the post list module, but in the posts module here. And the posts module does not import the common material modules. So we can do this here. We just import this module and everything should work fine. Yeah, perfect. Let's see how the dialog looks like. All right, so this is almost what we wanted. We have a form, we have inputs, but it looks a little bit ugly, I would say. Let's just go to the documentation. Let's see, let's get a dialog example, because for a dialog we can have a title, a content, and some actions. Let's just copy the the example from here, paste it inside our dialog, and we will use the dialog title, new post dialog, let's call it like that. The dialog content will be actually of this class container fluid, and it will contain a row. And now we can take our form, place it here, and each mat form field will be a column 6. No, let's just wrap the mat form field into a column 6 and remove this class from here, and just let's duplicate the column 6 3 times. Good. Right, let's put this here, this here, and this here. Now we also need some actions. One action would be for a submit, which should have a primary color primary, and one action for a board. Good. And remove these and focus. Good. Let's see what we have now. All right, it looks almost okay. There are some issues with the markup, but in general, let's just check the, yeah. So I guess the issue here is that we have the dialog content class here. If you remove this class, you see the container fluid is applied much more better. So let's just remove this one, and we should see a change. But this is still not what I would like to see. I want to see, while we have each form field in a column 6, they should actually appear, two of the inputs should be on one line. This is because the mat form field requires a width 50 here and here, and we can actually, let's just see if this change anything. Okay, it doesn't change anything because the dialog width is too small. We need to provide the width as a parameter. Here you can see the method open for the dialog receives a optional parameter object with different settings. So in our case, we need to provide a width parameter. Let's do this. Let's just copy paste this one. Let's go to our block application, and in the open method here, we'll provide this object. We can leave the height, we can remove it because we want the height to be adjusted by the content of the dialog. But the width, this is what we want to change. Now let's see if this actually changed anything. And let's open the dialog, and you can see we've got the dialog width adjusted. Now let's let's check actually why the form is not being adjusted. And I think because the columns are inside the form tag instead of the row tag. So if I move them like that, you can see they are now adjusted. Now let's quickly change our markup here. We will take the form and make it, well, actually this whole thing can be the form. So like that. And now this class W50, you see, if we open the dialog, you see that the inputs are not long enough. They don't fill the whole container. The whole container, the column 6 container. So we really want to change this, and we will add W100 class like that. And yeah, this field, well, actually this one is a text area, and perhaps the text area should be a column 12. And yeah, that will look not very good, but let's just see how it will perform now. Open the dialog, and you see the title and the subtitle are aligned in one row, and the width fills completely the column. So as you can see, the column, this is its width, and the mod form field fills the width of the column 6. Now this is okay, this is okay. The image URL, well, the image URL looks strange because the content does not have the same column width. What we can do, we can adjust the image to column 12, and we also add the class W100, which means width 100, to the text area mod form field. All right, this is a little bit better now. The content, whoops, sorry, the content here, as I said, we can later on add a WYSIWYG editor, but for now we can leave it as it is. Maybe we can adjust the initial default line height or amount of lines. Let's just see the input. There should be a text area. Should see how auto resize. This can be made automatically resized by using, well, that's not interesting for us. Let's just see what we do have here. Yeah, we can just leave it as it is for now. By the way, we can add some additional information below the text area, a so-called mat hint. You see, let's just add for the content, just so that we have a nice interface. We can add here mat hint, and this will be you can provide a HTML content here. Oops, content, right. Good, let's see. All right, it looks much more better now. We have, the only thing that I don't like is that this content here, it requires maybe a margin at bottom. Let's see. We can set margin bottom for the whole container fluid thing. Let's just add MB 3 or maybe 4. Yeah, that looks better. Let's add it here. And now the dialog markup should be finished. Good. That looks much more better now. Also, as you can see, we have here the title and the content widths are not aligned, maybe we can fix this by removing those paddings. And this could be done, well, we can just remove them with a specific class. Also from the Bootstrap utility classes, we can set p0, which means padding 0. Let's just add it here. Good. This is much more what I want to see. And now we want also to add a progress bar that will show us the loading. When we make a request to our API, it should show us that the data is actually loading. It's a good way to inform the user that something is happening and the application is not frozen. Let's just add one mod progress bar with mode indeterminate, and let's see how it will look like. Okay, you see it overlaps on top of the buttons. This is not exactly what we would like to have. Let's just see what we what components and controls we do have in the, oh, not in the mod card, but in the dialog here. Let's see, let's go to the API, or rather here, maybe a specific web configuration. This is not what we want. Oh, here, dialog content. We have the mod dialog title, mod dialog content, mod dialog actions. And let's try the actions actually. Maybe we will put this mod progress bar to the actions. Let's just see how it will perform. But good. Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. So our goal here is to show this progress bar whenever we make a API request from this dialog. Also, while this is a form and we want to have some validation, some really simple validation here. We could do this using reactive forms, but for the sake of simplicity of this tutorial, we will use just standard required fields validation. This is very easy to do. We just add a required property to our input, and let's just copy paste this here. And well, the image URL might be required, but we don't actually care if there will be some content or not. But just for the sake of this tutorial, let's just make it required. The content itself, well, it could be also required, right? Let's just see how the form changes. Open dialog, and you can see we have now those asterisks here that shows that this content is required. We but don't have a error message for this validation. Anyway, we can leave it for now. Maybe we'll adjust it a little bit later, but let us continue with the creation of a new post. What we still need, we need a method here, a public method. Let's call it submit. And yeah, and it will not receive anything for now. Also, we can create a variable here, ng form. I don't recall the correct syntaxes here. Let's just Google quickly. ng form template, Angular template driven forms. All right, and let's search quickly ng form Good, this is the syntaxes, so I wrote it correctly. With this, with the hashtag, we say that this will be a local variable, and we assign a value, the ng form. So here, the f, or we can call it form, will have a form inside it, the ng form. And now what we can do, we can actually make some additional validation here. We can disable the submit button if the form is not valid. Let's say is not valid. I think this is the correct syntaxes. All right. Template export as oh yeah, there's no directive is export as set to ng form because we don't import the form module. Let's just import quickly the form module. Inside the post modules, we will import a forms module, right? Now the error should be gone. Correct. And the submit is not disabled because, yeah, I think because the validation is still not working. Yeah, let's just see the ng form API. What fields it has. Okay, so it should have the valid and invalid field, but our form here is not getting validated. You see, we don't have a class that says ng dirty or ng invalid. Let's try and debug this one. Let's see. I think that might be because we don't have a name or a model attached to here. So first of all, let's just provide a model for this form. Let's say that we will have a public new post model that will be of type create post DTO, and we initialize it as a empty object. But in order to maintain the TypeScript typing, we will also say we'll use the as keyword, and we will say the new object is type DTO, although it's empty, but it's of type create post DTO. Good. Now we shouldn't have any errors in TypeScript, and we can start and bind the properties of the form to this model, and we say this is our title. Just copy paste this several times like that, and now this is the subtitle, this is the image URL, and this is the content. Good. Let's just check if we don't get any errors. We get some errors because we need another component. We need the common module. I mean, not component, but the module. No, wait a minute. Oh yeah, it says that we need a name. I'm sorry, not the common module. We need to provide a name to the inputs. We call this title, copy, paste. This is subtitle, copy, paste. Whoops. This is image URL, and this is the content. Content, right? And now, yes, no errors. We get a validation error because we have bound to our input a ng model. We have also provided a name for each input, and we get those validation errors. And as you can see, the submit button is disabled. Now, if we fill some data here for all the required fields, the submit button is now enabled. Good. Now let's go back to our submit, and here we will receive the form itself of type ng form, and this form can be our ng form, this one. What we also, in order, well, we could actually do, we can change the type here of this button. We can say this type is submit button, and now we need to wrap it inside our form. We just change this to, we wrap everything into our form, and we actually don't need this type. This will be of type button. And now if we click here, we can say submit, and we will provide this ng form into the submit, like that. Good. Let's see. Let's actually do a console log of this form so that you see what is provided into this method. So remember, we do this here, and now on submit we get this form. Now this form will contain all our input fields as controls, so we can do additional checks for validation, or we can also check for the form itself if it's invalid or if it's valid, like that. Good. Now let's go back and adjust this method. We say if the form is valid. This is another step for validation, so that we make sure that every data is valid, truly valid. If you even go and hack somehow through the button disabled state, the method will still check the form for valid state. So we can remove now the console log from here and go to post resource. Now we need to create a new method for the create new post. Public create. It will return, let's actually see what it returns. We need to check our backend for this. Let's go to our post controller and see that the create method returns, well, it doesn't return anything. But if we check the post service, it returns the post repository is safe. And this method should actually return the create post DTO when it's created. So is it correct? Let's check quickly. Oops. Yes, it returns, you see, and the highlight create post DTO and post entity. So we can actually try and say that this returns the create post DTO, but wrapped inside a promise. And now we can also check and change it here. Promise create post DTO. Yeah. So in other words, the create method returns the newly created post DTO. Knowing that, we can also say observable create post DTO. And now we go and make a call to the API. We say post, remember, because the method is post, not get. We provide the URL. The URL is the same for this resource. You see, this is the post's URL and this is the controller of post, so it's all the same. And we also, what's the matter? Oh yeah, we need to provide a body. You see, we are waiting for a create post DTO as our request body, so we also change this method, create post DTO of type create post DTO, and now the body will be this newly created post DTO. Good. Also, we need to say that this will return a observable of type create post DTO, so that TypeScript doesn't throw on us some errors. Good. Now we can also change the post service. We will add a new one, create post. Now the create post DTO. And we call the resource. Good. Actually, we are done here. Now we go back to our post dialog. We will inject the post service. Like that. And I'm thinking if we actually need the ng on init. I think we don't need it for now. We can remove it and remove it from the import as well. No. Good. So what we can do now, we can oh yeah, remember the mod progress bar. We want to show it only in case we have some loadings happening. So let's just use the ng if here, and we say ng if is loading. Now is loading is a new variable here. It will be public, is loading, and the default value will be false. Now if we submit and the form is valid, we start loading some data because we will make a new request. So we say this is loading true, and we start loading some data. Create post, and we provide this new post model, and we will subscribe on that. Later on, we want some action after we successfully have created a post. We will add some actions here, but first of all we need a pipe here, and we will use the finalize operator here, and this operator will fire when the observable is finished. Either it might finish with a success, or it might be finished with a error, but in any case, whenever it's finished, the finalize method will be fired. And we won't in any case, rather we get a error or a success, we want to say that this is loading is false, because we don't load any data after that. Good. Now we can actually make a test of the response, and we can console log it out. So whenever we call our API, and if it's successfully, we will get a response, and now we can console log the response. Let's just check it. Okay, we get, oh yeah, the ng if throws us an error because we need this common module for the posts module. the common module is required, because ngIf is part of the common module. Good, let's create one. New post from client. Whoops. New posts subtitle. No image URL. Some content here. Let's just click on submit, and we see we've made a request here. We've got a response, and now I see one issue here. You see, we have received a ID, but let's check the create post DTO. It does not contain a ID. We have actually received another object. We have received the entity itself. So what we need to fix so that our API and our client are consistent, and so that our code is more readable and correct, we need to change the return type here. This is actually, we could do something like that, post entity, right? But first of all, we get an error because the post service returns post service create returns a create post DTO. But anyway, we can change it like that. This is actually not a good idea to use the entity itself for describing the data, because the entity is our model, so to say. We can just create a new DTO TypeScript, and we call it post DTO. And the post DTO will actually export a class post DTO. It actually extends the post entity for now, because they are the same. We don't need to add any other fields here. But this is just the case for now. We might have some changes in the post DTO, and the post DTO might differ from the post entity. But for now, let's just keep it like that. And we say that we return a post DTO here, and the create method returns also a post DTO. Now, the same thing we should do on our client side application, because, well, the post list item is actually exactly, it reflects exactly the post DTO. So that then let's rename it, because this is actually a post DTO and not a post list item. Like that. Good. And IntelliJ should take care of all the occurrences of the interface, and will refactor and rename it automatically. Good. Now back to our post service, and we change it to post DTO. The return type of the create method, I've made here a typo. The return type of the create post method returns a post DTO, and the resource returns also a post DTO, like that. Let's recap on that and see if everything works. Yeah, so we create new title, subtitle, whoops, some image URL and content. Submit, and we have received a new object with an ID and our data. That means this was successfully added to our database. And you can also see that our previous entry has been added to our post application. But in order to see the latest addition, we have now to refresh the page, and now we see this latest the latest entry. we can change this and we can add some refresh for our list. And this will be done inside the subscribe method. First of all, we need to adjust our post list. We now can say that the open method returns us actually a reference to the dialog component. So we can say that const ref is equals to this here. And now if we say ref, it has a method after it closed. Now we can subscribe to this method and it will receive, it receives here, let's just see, gets an observable that is notified when the dialog is finished closing. And we can provide here some data. So when we close the dialog from the dialog itself, we can either provide some data that will be displayed here in this subscription, or we can just leave it out. But we'll provide a new post DTO. Well, not, we will provide a new post which is of type post DTO, like that. And when we receive this data, we need to check if the new post is really provided. Then we can do the following thing. The post list is a observable of type post DTO. We want to push new items to that. We need to modify it a little bit. We will create a new field called private, a new private field called post list subject, and this will be of type behavior subject. This is something similar to a observable, but it will allow us to push new data. This subject will be of type post DTO array, and we initialize it new behavior subject with a empty value. Now our onInit method requires some changes too. We'll remove this assignment and we will start, we will actually start a subscription here. And we say whenever we receive the data, which is the post list items, we can do this thing here. We call the post list subject and we call the next method on it. Now whenever we receive, that means that whenever we receive some data, we push new data to this subject. And the subject is private for purpose, because you should never do public subjects. What you should do is create a new method, call it get posts or get post list. And now this should return a observable of post DTO. And we call here, return our subject, and we call here as observable. So the subject will return the value as a observable and not as a subject. Good. So what's wrong here? Oh yeah, because we return a post DTO array. Okay, this is correct now. And we also want to show that there is some loading in progress. This is done the same way as we did it on the dialog. We create a new public isLoading field. This is false by default. When we start loading some data, we say isLoading true, and we can actually copy this pipe here and paste it inside this post list. And we say, when we finalize, this is loading, is false. Good. So before we go to the create post, let's just modify the post list to our new structure. Remember here we had a ngIf, and we don't have now the post list method, field. We remove it, we don't need it at all. We have instead a new method, getPostList, and this method is also asynchronous because it returns a observable. So in this case we just need to change the name, but we already have a new variable is loading, so we will remove the else statement, and we can actually remove the ng template, and here in the mat progress bar we can set the a new ngIf, and it will render the mat progress bar when the is loading variable is true, something like that. So I think we changed everything. Let's just check if the application still works with the new changes. Good, the console has no errors. The new way of loading the data is working. So we load the data from the subject itself, not from the service, from the observable that is returned from the service. We have our own subject, and this allows us to do the following thing. We can actually now, in our after closed subscription, we can do this kind of thing. We can say const list is equals to this subject get value, and this method will return the current value of the subject. So we will get the whole list that we have requested from the server, right? And now if we receive from our dialog a new post, we can actually say this list push new post, and this list, this new list with the pushed post, is actually a new value for the subject. So we do this thing, this post list subject next list, and this will update our new list. There is but one catch, and I will show you how to get rid of this catch. Let's just see what happens. Title 2, subtitle 2, image, content 3. Let's submit. Oh, right. Nothing happens now. We don't get into this after closed method because we didn't do here in the subscribe method nothing. We need to call the reference of the dialog and close with the data. Let's just go to the dialog documentation and let's check one thing. How do we receive the, yeah, so here you can see your dialog, it receives a dialog reference, so you can inject your dialog reference here. We can just copy this line of code, and inside our constructor we can say private dialog reference of type mat dialog ref, and now we can call this dialog reference, close and you can see it receives a optional parameter dialog results, and our dialog results is the response from our server, which is the new post. Let's just check if everything works. So we open our dialog, we create a new post, whoops, 1 2 3, subtitle 1 2 3 4, image, and content. Now if we click on submit, we've received a response from our server which says that everything is okay. We have created our data, but the list did not update it. This is because, okay, we have here an error because the dialog ref expects a type. Yes, you can see it expects a generic type. So we will provide the post, the class, the name of the class as the type, because it's actually the dialog of this component. Good. But the issue is not in that. The issue is actually here, because the new subject receives a new value, but Angular here doesn't see a change, and that's why the data is not being updated. We can actually fix it very quick, and I do recommend to use one library that I use for all my projects. The library is called NodeJs. It is a very nice library to work with collections, and it provides you a lot of protection against such things as undefined errors. Now let's just install it really quick. Let's do npm install NodeJs, whoops, and npm install, oh, we need to save it. Save, and whoops, npm install types, because we use TypeScript, NodeJs, and save it to the dev dependencies. Alright, everything has been installed. Now let's actually use the NodeJs library, and we can use here a method from the NodeJs library called clone deep. Now the clone deep method, let's just make a import. The clone deep method will clone the list object as a newly object. So it will, in this case, we provide to the next method not a link to this list, but we will provide a new object. And let's see how actually the application will behave if we use this approach. Now wait for it. Yeah, it's been built. Now let's create a new. I am a new title, whoops, subtitle, some image URL, and some content, and too lazy to write something. Now let's see if this NodeJs method actually helped. Yeah, you can see we have a new entry here. The list was updated with a new entry. Good. So what do we need to change? I would like to change the order of those entries. And one way is to change it on the client side here, but I think there is a better way to change it on the Nest application. And we can do this by going to the post service, and we can make here a then, because we are working with a promise and we know that we received the response. Oh, this is for the create method, sorry. We need to change this one. While this is a observable, we can use a pipe method, and now we can call a operator map, and this operator receive the posts. And again, we can use NodeJs even for our backend application. So let's just install it. npm install NodeJs and save. Takes some time, but good. And now we can install the typings. pm install types NodeJs, and we save to dev. All right, now we can actually use a method from NodeJs. Let's just go to the documentation of NodeJs. We can use a method order by, and this is the definition of this method. So it takes a collection, it has a iterative and the order. In other words, we can use a construction similar to that. We can provide a collection, a property, and then we say, is it ascending or descending? Let's try it out. Let's just say that the map is returning to us a ordered collection of posts by the ID, and I want to order them by the ID because the ID is a auto-generated value and it's auto-incremented. So the newest one will be the biggest one. So the newest entry will have the biggest ID. And let's just provide the order. Let's say it's a ascending order. And the import here. Good. All right. Oops, this is not required here. And let's start the application and see if this actually works. This is a little bit red because missing trailing comma. Okay, the TypeScript linter wants here trailing comma, but it's really not required here. Let's see how our application behaves now. Okay, the order is the same. Now let's try and change this here. Restart the app and let's see if it actually helped. Yeah. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, good. Let's refresh. And now we see that the order of the list has been changed. Good. All right. I think we can sum up this part. We have created our new dialog. This is our interface for creating new posts. And it works. It has some validation, some very, very simple validation. And by the way, if we click on cancel, nothing is being created, although the method after close is being called. And I'm gonna show it to you. Dialog closed. Good. If you cancel it, you will see this message because the observable listens for the close of the dialog. And this is why we have this check here if the new post is provided. If you just cancel it out, the new post is not provided. The new post is provided only in the case when you have sent some data to the backend and received a successful response. Good. This is actually all for this part of the tutorial. It got a little bit longer than I expected. And that's why I've actually split the part 4 and part 5 into 2 separate parts. Anyway, thank you for watching. It was Ruben from Codeforges. See you in the next part.